Hello and welcome to another one video. When did World War I start? The immediate cause for World War I was the assassination of the Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria and his pregnant wife Sophie. Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria was the nephew of Emperor Franz Joseph and heir to the throne of Austria and Hungary. The assassination was planned by a Serbian terrorist group called the Black Hand, and the man who shot Franz Ferdinand and his wife was a Bosnian revolutionary named Gavrilo Princip. However, there were many other causes for the start of World War I. Before WW1 was triggered, a number of defense alliances existed between the major European countries. What this meant was that if one country declared war on another, the other countries would also have to enter the conflict because it was in the treaty they agreed. Britain, France, Ireland and Russia were part of an alliance called the Triple Entente, while Germany aligned itself with Austria-Hungary, known as the Central Powers. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in Sarajevo on 28 June 1914, it triggered a chain of events that resulted in World War I. After the assassination, Austria-Hungary threatened war on Serbia. They set out some very harsh demands that Serbia must meet. Germany sided by Austria-Hungary, while Russia sided with the Serbians. At this point, Europe was at the brink of going to war. 1 month after the Archduke's assassination on July 28, 1914, Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia with the backing of Germany. Germany then declared war on Russia on August 1 and on France on August 3. On August 4, 1914, the German troops marched on France, and the route they took went through Belgium. Since Britain had agreed to maintain the neutrality of Belgium, they immediately declared war on Germany. British and German forces first fought at the Battle of Mons in Belgium. This was the first of many battles between Britain and Germany on the Western Front and is when World War I started for Britain. So, we can say WW1 was started by Austria with the war with Serbia. What were the positive effects of World War I? War never does any good to any of the parties involved. Whether victorious or defeated, they have to suffer almost the same. Still, WW1 had some positive effects in different parts of the world. Most important of that was end of Tsar dynasty in Northern Asia and founding of USSR by the Bolshevik Revolution, led by Vladimir Lenin in 1917. This second decade of 20th century saw science take giant steps forward. By the end of war, airplane had shown their superiority, and armored cars called tanks during the war too have proved to be machine marvel. It put a question mark on the stability of British Empire. All its colonies were hopeful of independence. In colonies like India, where people were already revolting for independence, the demand for it grew. The myth of British Empire being invincible was falling. The formation of USSR brought out the idea of sovereign and socialism, which changed the outlook of the world. Formation of League of Nations was another positive effects of WW1. Though it failed miserably in achieving its objective of preventing any more WW1-like situation, the failure gave important lesson for later body made on the footsteps of it, that is the UN. It proved to be a far controlling authority than the League. In India, where leaders had supported the British with whole heart in hope of attaining dominion status for India, which was not provided by the British, a demand for complete swaraj was rising. Finally, J. Nehru in Lahore declared that Congress goal would be Purna Swaraj, not dominion. Status 1930 Bank of River Ravi. World power status of the European countries began shifting towards USA, as it was USA whose entry into the war ended it. How did World War I end? Germany and the Axis powers surrendered. The country was exhausted and running out of food. It could have continued fighting and inflicting heavy casualties on the Allies, however there wasn't enough manpower left by the end of 1918 for Germany to effect a successful offensive. Think of it as a tag team boxing match at the start of the 12th round. The Axis and Allies are staggering forward, wheezing from exhaustion. All bloodied up and bruised. 2 rounds prior, Germany hammers the crap out of Russia, while Britain and France are getting some jabs in. And Turkey is trying to land a bunch of jabs and left hooks on Britain. Britain takes some of the hits, blocks a few, and lands a few jabs, but Turkey stops a power punch. Russia gets up from a KO and almost starts the next match, but then its coach and manager start fighting, and they throw in the towel. This is all going while Germany is having a slugging match with French, British and Commonwealth troops. Everybody's getting the living s beaten out of them, but by the 10th round Germany is still in the lead. With nothing but sweat and blood on the floor and everybody dead tired and falling over from exhaustion. By the end of the 11th round, Britain and France tag up an amateur fighter with a good record and an appetite for fighting. Team USA. Germany looks at the new opponent. A younger fighter in a lower weight class. and says, "What are you kidding me? How many am I going to fight here? Fine. I'll pulverize this rookie punk." Team USA says in a slightly higher pitch. "You're going down, you Hun bully. After what you did to the Lusitania, and my European pals have had enough." Germany says, "Yeah, whatever kid, bring it on." The match proceeds. America lands a few jabs, Germany blocks a few, then lands a straight right. America stoobles. France advances but walks into a giant left hook. Britain steps in and lands an uppercut to the body. Germany shrugs it off and jabs Britain in the face, but Britain blocks it, along with dodging a giant power punch. Britain turns around and socks Turkey in the face twice. France is getting up from the left hook with America helping. Germany kicks America in the gut. France gets up furious and combination punches Germany, landing many hits. Germany headbutts France in the head. Blood splatters on the crowd. Everybody's booing. Germany shouts, "F$ at KU." Britain attempts a left straight power punch, Germany blocks and pushes Britain to the middle of the ring. America lands a heaping right hook to the midsection. The wind is knocked out of Germany. And before America goes in for the kill, Britain steps in about to fall over, "Allow me mate," and socks the meat out of Germany's head. Germany falls over. The ref jumps in. Britain falls down panting and whipping the sweat and blood off its head. France is leaning over on the railing. Germany gets up. Falls down. Ref continues counting. Germany gets up on its feet laughing. "Tough bastard." America says. "All right, lads. On your feet again," Britain says. "Madre," says France. "Is that? Spits blood. All you got?" Germany says. America and Britain jump at Germany. Germany grapples both. America lands left jabs to Germany's ribs. Out of nowhere, Germany's manager throws in the towel. The crowd is ecstatic and uproar. "Stop the fight," the manager says. "Aw, come on. I had them," Germany said. The fight was over. The Allies embraced each other. "Yay, we did it, hip hip hooray," said Britain and France. "You can thank me later," said America. The war was over. The German government made the decision to quit. Many German civilians would have continued support. But a lot were almost starving. France and Britain was on the brink of collapse. Young America showed up right on time to put fresh troops in the trenches and eventually the woods. And the war was soon over. What was the significance of World War I? Oh my god, where to begin? I may actually need to come back to this one later. World War I was extremely important to how the rest of the 20th century would play out. Let me list a few points quickly. World War I was simultaneously the end and the beginning of many different tactics, technologies and attitudes towards war. The romance of it all was quick to fade away to the harsh realities that machine gun load and trenches, earth-shattering artillery and chemical warfare. A perfect summary of this is that the French cavalry rode into World War I, adorned almost exactly as they would have been in the days of Napoleon. All these old world, imperialistic notions began the war, New World practicality ended it. It was sort of the world growing up, you could almost say. Without World War I there would not have been a World War II. The way World War I ended, the division of land, the collapse of established monarchies and government, and the civil disharmony spread by frustrations with a devastating conflict, left a sour taste in the mouths of many who would become influential in the next war. You could probably name a few. World War I saw the rise of communist ideology because it filled a void which the war had created in countries like Germany and Russia. Ironically, the Germans have themselves to blame for this. In an attempt to destabilize a disgruntled Russian population, Paul von Hindenburg, the supreme German commander, helped smuggle exiled Marxists back into Russia. They promised the people three things: bread, land and peace. You didn't have to be a politically savvy individual to appreciate that sentiment. During the time, most people understood that those were the only three things in life they really wanted. The Marxists were there to pick up the pieces after the fall of the Tsar, and they forged the communist powerhouse of Russia from those scattered pieces. The immense wealth of America can be attributed to World War I. Before the outbreak of the war, Great Britain was perhaps the wealthiest nation on the planet. So wealthy that they offered to strike the costs of their Dominion forces if they sent troops to fight in the war. They funded a huge campaign to equip millions of men from across the empire and supply them for the duration of the war. Raw materials and goods were needed from big industrialized states like the US, and Wall Street practically dropped a huge vacuum cleaner in London and sucked out all the cash. If you had a slight degree of skepticism, you would almost think that the US only entered to war to ensure that the British could win so they could collect their debt. National identity. For younger British dominions, WW1 was huge. Much of the Canadian, Australian and New Zealander national identities were forged in this war. They embraced it almost entirely and built a military culture on the shoulders of the men who served on the Western Front in the Middle East. British Dominion soldiers had such a collectively huge impact on that war despite their numbers. They were used as shock troops in the latter half of the war, usually poised to break German lines so that the British and French could follow through. Even America developed their national identity further. The American army was dragged kicking and screaming into modern warfare and taught how to fight by the Europeans and their Dominion troops. Soon enough they eventually blended their own bravado into how they liked to fight war, and this would influence them in the next war. Before WW1, Americans had little interest in foreign intervention. George Washington had actually argued against America ever being involved in the politics and wars of Europe. This was certainly to change as America became hugely involved in the affairs of the world ever since the closing days of this war. What is the least known World War I fact? 1. An explosion on the battlefield in France was heard in London. While the war raged on in the mud and trenches, a very different war was taking place beneath the soldiers' feet. A group of miners, operating in total secrecy, dug tunnels up to 100 feet underground to plant and detonate mines beneath the enemy's trenches. Their biggest success was at Messines Ridge in Belgium, where over 900,000 pounds of explosives were simultaneously detonated in 19 underground tunnels. Much of the German front line was destroyed, and the explosions were heard 140 miles away by the British Prime Minister in Downing Street 2. Journalists faced execution. A handful of journalists risked their lives to report on the realities of war. As the government sought to control the flow of information from the front line at the start of the war, journalists were banned. Reporting on the conflict was, in the opinion of the War Office, helping the enemy. If caught, they faced the death penalty. 3. 12 million letters were delivered to the front every week. Astonishingly, it only took 2 days for a letter from Britain to reach the front in France. The journey began at a purpose-built sorting depot in Regent's Park before being shipped to the trenches. By the end of the war, 2 billion letters and 114 million parcels had been delivered. 4. War work turned some women's skin yellow. When a generation of men went to fight the war, more than 1 million women took their place in the workforce. They worked long hours, often in poor conditions and with dangerous chemicals. The so-called canaries were women who worked with TNT, which gave them toxic jaundice and turned their skin yellow. 5. WW1 sparked the invention of plastic surgery. Shrapnel was the cause of many facial injuries in WW1, and unlike the straight-line wounds inflicted by bullets, the twisted metal shards produced from a shrapnel blast could easily rip a face off. Horrified by the injuries he saw, surgeon Harold Gillies took on the task of helping victims and pioneered early techniques of facial reconstruction in the process. 6. Wilfred Owen was unknown at the end of the war. Wilfred Owen is one of the best-known poets of the WW1, but when he died on the front line, just a week before the end of the war, he was relatively unknown. At the time, his view of the war as one of pity and horror was in the minority. It wasn't until the 1960s that a literary elite decided this was the most authentic view of the conflict because it chimed with their own anti-war feelings. This resulted in the publication of 2 key war poetry anthologies, which heavily featured Owen. 7. The youngest British soldier was 12 years old. Sidney Lewis was just 12 years old when he lied about his age and joined the army during World War I. He was one of thousands of eager underage boys who enlisted and ended up fighting alongside their adult counterparts on the front. Some were motivated by patriotism, but for others it was an escape from their dreary lives. 8. WW1 nearly caused a financial meltdown in Britain. At the turn of the 20th century, Britain was an economic superpower, but the world's first global war would cost more than any that had gone before. For example, the cost of bullets fired in one 24-hour period in September 1918 was nearly £4 million. 9. Blood banks were developed during WW1. The British Army began the routine use of blood transfusion in treating wounded soldiers. Blood was transferred directly from one person to another. A U.S. Army doctor, Captain Oswald Robertson, established the first blood bank on the Western Front in 1917, using sodium citrate to prevent the blood from coagulating and becoming unusable. Blood was kept on ice for up to 28 days and then transported to casualty clearing stations for use in life-saving surgery where it was needed most. 10. Colorful makeovers meant WW1 ships hid in plain sight. It was crucial to protect the merchant ships carrying the food and military supplies to the front from enemy torpedoes. Norman Wilkinson, an artist and Royal Navy volunteer, came up with the idea of covering ships in bold shapes and violent contrasts of color. The complete opposite of normal camouflage, dazzle camouflage was supposed to confuse the enemy rather than conceal the ships. 11. 9 out of 10 soldiers survived. The trenches being in the firing line was rare for a British soldier. They constantly moved around the trench system, meaning more often than not, they were kept from the dangers of enemy fire. The more typical experience for the British Tommy would have been a life of boredom and regular routine. 12. Generals were banned from going over the top. The stereotype is that the ordinary soldiers of WW1 were lions led by donkeys, the donkeys being incompetent generals who sat out the war in comfort while thousands died unnecessary deaths. In fact, so many of the generals wanted to be closer to the fighting they had to be banned from going over the top because they kept getting killed. The experience required to be a general was too significant to lose. What are untold and strange stories of World War I? The French Mutiny. In May 1917, about half the French army mutinied. The French had had over 1 million deaths so far and had just been decimated in another disastrous offensive. Over 20,000 troops deserted outright, others refused to obey orders. There was a lot of secrecy around the mutiny, but records show that over 500 men were sentenced to death, although fewer than 50 were actually executed. The commander-in-chief, General Nivelle, was sacked, reforms were made, and more leaves were granted, which restored order to the French army. The war went underground. Tunnels were dug underneath enemy lines so that explosives could be laid. Sometimes tunnelers from both sides met underground and engaged in hand-to-hand combat. A not-so-unknown fact. On Christmas 1914, there was a spontaneous cessation of hostilities between British and German troops in the front lines. They met in no man's land, the area between the opposing front lines, where small gifts like chocolate or buttons were exchanged, and in some places they played football. It's become known as the Christmas Truce and was dramatized in a 2005 Oscar-nominated French film entitled Joyeux Noël. A different facet of the war, the army permitted troops to visit licensed brothels, as sex was considered a physical necessity for the men. The Maisons de Tolerance with blue lamps were for officers and red lamps for the other ranks. The war wasn't the only murderer. The great influenza pandemic of 1918 is thought to have killed from 30 to 100 million people worldwide. About 50,000 Canadians and 228,000 British died, and millions more were sick. Many of those who survived had lifelong health problems. Ironically, as if youth hadn't sacrificed and suffered enough, this virulent Spanish flu, contrary to form, killed a disproportionate number of people in their 20s and 30s. Pregnant women had the highest death rates from 23% to 71%. See John M. Barry's epic tome, The Great Influenza. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe the video.